Hello and welcome, this is Mousgunner, and we're back with some more BattleTech and my continued look at the backer beta build and the single player skirmish mode that is currently the only mode available. And for this video I'll be doing another well-rounded build. This is a series I started where I take a look at the different budget levels. This will be the last covering the Clash budget level, which is the lowest level, and this is the third that I've done so far at this budget level. Now, I will admit in the last video that I don't think my play was as good as it probably should have been. I freely admit that. And part of the reason for that, I think, is the fact that I came in with that particular loadout completely cold. I had always intended to do a series covering well-rounded builds like this at the different budget levels, but when I originally thought up this idea, I thought I was only going to do one build at each budget level, and those builds I wrote down and I tested them out and saw what I liked about them. So I had experience with them, I knew what to expect. When I expanded this series to be more than one build at each budget level, that second build that I did in the last video, I didn't practice at all beforehand. I didn't test it out, and I think it is a good build, but I don't think I played it properly. So from that experience, I decided to do a stream, which I did recently, and I tested out future builds that I do. Not only to do it as a proof of concept, but also to give me practice with the builds in general. So taking the lessons I took from the last video of what mistakes I feel like I made, and the experience of that stream, I'm hoping to have a little bit more solid gameplay from here on out. In any case, the build that I'm going to do here, and if you haven't seen any of the videos from the series, the idea behind a well-rounded build is that I'm going to have one scout, one, preferably two frontline mechs, and at least one support mech. I am also trying to work within the budget level that I have, so we're at the Clash budget level, which is the lowest, and we only have 15 million to work with, and I'm trying to get as close as I can to that limit. In this case, I did indeed get to that limit. So those are constraints on me when I'm doing any of these builds. This particular build, we have our obvious scout with the Locust, which is the lowest value scout that you can have. It has a medium laser and 2 machine guns, but it has very good mobility, and its job as a scout is going to be providing us line of sight. And when it calls for it, we can do hit and run attacks, or we can do flank attacks. Now, as far as our front line, it's not going to be as obvious with this build. The Centurion is the clear front, or at least one of the clear frontline mechs that we're going to be using, but all of the mechs that we have and the rest of our lineup can fill more than one role. For example, the Centurion here has pretty good durability. It has pretty good close-range firepower, which is one thing that I really look for in a frontline mech, because you want to be a threat at close range. You want to keep the enemy away from your support mechs, which are usually attacking from range, and away from your light mechs. So usually that requires you to get up close and personal, and you want to have threatening firepower. You want to be able to draw, you want to tank that damage, and to tank that damage, you're going to have to draw it in the first place. And if you're not a threat, then why would the enemy shoot at you? So that is kind of the idea behind a frontline mech. And I think the Centurion does pretty well on this. Its one weak point is it may not be as durable as other frontline mechs we've seen used. For example, the Hunchback. You can see the difference there in durability. But it has good firepower, 2 medium lasers, an AC-10, and it can fill the role as a support mech if you need it to be, as it does have an LRM-10, and the AC-10 can reach out and touch people at a decent range, not as long as I would like, but it's still capable as a support mech. Our other two mechs that can also fill multi-role positions as support mechs, I think that they're best suited as a support mech, is the Vindicators that we're going to be using. We have 2 of these. Now, I'm going to be using one as a support mech and the other one as a frontline mech because the Vindicators do have good durability. As a matter of fact, comparing that to the Centurion, we can see that the durability does go up very slightly. So the Vindicator does have a slight edge, even though it is a lighter mech in durability. As far as its armament goes, close-range firepower is going to be a little bit of its weakness. So as I discussed, I like to have good close-range firepower with my frontline mechs. So I have a medium laser and a small laser. That's pretty much it. And then for our long-range firepower, a little bit better, we have a PPC and an LRM-5. As I said, I have one mech with the pilot intended to be a frontline mech, so we have put in Paradise. This is going to keep the mech moving, as he has evasive move as his ability, which when you move, just a normal move, you get the evasive status, which means that you have a 50% chance to dodge incoming fire. Now, the reason I have chosen Paradise for the Vindicator is because of that PPC. The PPC has a minimum range, and if the enemy gets too close, I won't be able to use the PPC, and considering that the PPC is the Vindicator's main damage, we want to be able to move to try and keep that PPC out of that minimum range, a little bit further away so that we can do good damage. But I think one mistake that I made with the previous video with the Shadowhawk, which I think has a similar idea where you can do a lot of your damage at longer range, you don't really want to be backpedaling though with a frontline mech. You want to have this mech tanking damage, and you can't leave that tanking role just on one mech preferably, especially if you're going to have two frontline mechs like we're going to have. Now for the Centurion, we have Ozone, which has the Bulwark ability, and the idea behind this is that you stay stationary, so it's kind of the opposite of Paradise, where we're going to want to keep him moving constantly. With Ozone, we're going to stay stationary, and if we stay stationary, we can fire, but we're also, at the end of the turn, get the guarded status, which is very good because it reduces damage by 50%. Our other Vindicator that we're going to be using in the support role, I'm using Sumo, as the PPC is the main damage that this mech has. If I only use one weapon, I can remove any cover or guarded status that an enemy may have. And then my last pilot is Witness, which is going to have the sensor lock ability, which is an obvious choice for a scout mech. Alright, with all that being said, we will be doing the same map I've been doing in these other videos, just so that you can have comparison between each build. And then I will also be using the same opponent. I've kind of just given up on the random opponent because it's very clear that it's just giving me the same opponent every time. But I also think that it's probably a good idea to have the same opponent every time I do one of these builds, again, for that comparison. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the game. I will point out in my test, this was the most successful build that I've done. Now, I don't know if I'm going to replicate that success necessarily, as there is an element of luck or chance that you have with the attacks. So if I get unlucky and I miss a lot, this build may struggle, but with my test I did quite well and had a very speedy victory. Alright, so game plan here is we're going to run our scout mech over around behind this rock here. We're going to take Paradise, going to put him in this corner here. We're going to take Ozone in the Centurion. We're going to put him front and center. And then we're going to take Sumo and the other Vindicator, and we're going to put him in the woods here. So that we have line of sight, but we're a little bit further away, and we can support our two frontline mechs. Okay, so we have enemy contact. So as far as our opponent goes, we're going to be facing a Commando, two Jenners, and a Hunchback. The Hunchback is going to be quite a bit of a problem for us, as it has pretty devastating firepower in that AC-20, and it also has the ability to tank damage pretty well. But the AI does have deficiencies in the way that it does play, and as a result, I expect them to rush in with their light mechs, so we're going to have to deal with that early on to stem the tide of the damage, because Jenners can do a lot of damage if they're unchecked. But right now, though, we're going to reserve, and we're going to allow the enemy to come to us, as we're in a good defensive position with our medium mechs. We have evasive, we have cover, pretty good position. That Jenner is run forward in a very vulnerable position if we sensor lock it. So we're going to try and take it out as quickly as we can. The other Jenner comes forward, and here comes their Commando. A little bit behind. The Commando's not going to be as quick as the Jenners. Now, the real danger that we have with these Jenners is they'll try and jump in behind our Centurion. And there might not be a whole lot that I can do about that. But what we can try and do is counter that by punishing the mech if it does indeed do that. But we're going to expect that jump to be in right about this area. And I'm going to assume this mech is going to do it. The only way I can really prevent that is by making my Centurion retreat, but then if the Centurion retreats, it's not really doing its job as a frontline mech. With that being said, though, we're going to go ahead and move with our Witness, or with our Scout mech first. using our sensor lock to remove the evasive and the defensive bonuses for the movement from the Jenner, making it a nice, easy target. We're going to try and delete that mech on the first turn here so that it is not too much of a problem. Ideally, we want to keep our Centurion stationary so that we can tank damage properly and get that bulwark trait. Now, the downside of doing that is we do, as I said, allow that Jenner to jump in behind me. It has a very long jump range. And if I were to try and prevent that, what I'd want to do, and let's go ahead and move Ozone now. I don't see a reason why not. We'd want to move away to prevent that. But if we did that, we wouldn't have the bulwark working in our favor because we moved. And also, we wouldn't probably be able to get into cover. Unless I moved over here, I might be able to avoid it here. But I think I'm going to go ahead with the stationary move here. We are going to have to turn off our LRM-10 at this range because it's not going to have that great of a chance to hit, but we have a 90% chance to hit with all of our other weapons, and we really want these to hit. Okay, good damage there. Now, what we're looking to do is to neuter the firepower of the Jenner. If we don't take it out, if we don't kill it, that's okay. Let's go ahead and move with Sumo here. Now, unfortunately, we can get in to a place where we can see the Jenner, so we can do the most damage we can. And at this point, we can fire the medium laser, the LRM-5, and the PPC, which is pretty good firepower. And we've got 95% chance to hit with both our PPC and our LRM-5, so we really need to hit with those. Okay, and right there, we've already done pretty good damage and killed them, so we got really lucky there. Again, this build, I've done pretty well with so far. All right, now it's time for Paradise to move. We have already deleted one Jenner, so we're going to try and delete the other one. Now, one thing we can do is we can try and stay in a position where we can stop that Jenner from jumping in behind. Maybe even just moving here would do that. That's one idea. The other idea that we could do is just attack it. But it has evasive, and it's going to be a hard target. So, you know what? I'm going to even try this. It's possible that the Jenner will be able to jump in and get behind us anyway. It's hard for me to say necessarily what kind of jump range it has. But in this way, we'll actually be protecting our Centurion a little bit, making it harder for it to jump in behind us. And if I face this direction, it will be very hard for it to get in behind our mech in general. Maybe like that is probably the best, because it would have to jump very far to get in behind our Vindicator. Unless it gets in this space right here, then we'd be in trouble, and this would be kind of a wasted move. But I'm going to try for it. We will have evasive, which will be good. So let's see if the Jenner has enough jump range to deal with us. Now, we only have a 50% chance of hitting with our LRM-5. But we're going to fire it off anyway. And as we see, one missile lands. That's not too bad, all things considering. Now, let's see if it jumps in and it's able to get in behind us. It was able to get in behind us. We were trying to prevent that, but the advantage of what I just did is that we made the Vindicator be out in the open. So it did get a free shot on the rear armor of our Centurion, doing pretty damn good damage, pretty much deleting our back armor. But now I can try and make the mech pay. And the best way to do that is to sensor lock it. So I'm going to keep the Locust more or less where it is. I think we could move into the woods and try and support. I'm not going to use my weapons, though, in this case. We're just going to move in, get into cover. It does threaten our Locust a little bit. We'll sensor lock up this Jenner. The main reason I'm sensor locking it is not because of the evasive. We're not removing evasive. It doesn't have evasive. What we are removing, though, is this massive jump defense. So we're going to sensor lock it. It's going to make it an easier target. Here comes the Commando, which, again, far away is not really going to be a factor at this point. Okay, now we can respond to the Jenner that's jumping in behind us. So the first thing we're going to want to do is move Sumo in a way that we can get in. We can't quite get in behind. Now I'm kind of regretting that one move I did, because the idea here was to get in behind our opponent. I might even close in the range a little bit, but if I do that, the LRM-5 will not be a viable attack But I do want to hit the rear armor of this Jenner as much as I possibly can. So we're going to have a not very accurate LRM-5. We won't be able to use a small laser because to use a small laser, we won't be able to use the PPC as effective as we can. But this is a pretty good move nonetheless, and I think it's worth doing because a rear attack on this Jenner can be devastating, as Jenners do not have good armor, and hitting the rear is only going to be even worse. I am going to fire the LRM-5 off anyway, even though it doesn't have a great chance to hit, or because, I mean, why not? It's damage that could be effective here.
Here we go.
Boom, really good firepower there, and we've already eaten through some good armor there. Okay, here's going to come the Hunchback, but it's a relatively slow mech, so it will have some difficulty coming in. But it's going to attack our Centurion. Luckily, the big damage is going to miss here. As a matter of fact, only a little bit of medium laser damage. We can contend with that. Now it's going to be Paradise job to try and... yeah, okay, we can get in here. Problem is the PPC is not going to be as effective. Now, I can punch the Jenner instead. Let's see what we can do with that. So... if we punch, it doesn't allow me to get in behind, unfortunately. We would have the advantage of the small laser if we did this. We have a 90% chance to hit with the small laser and a 97% chance to hit with the melee attack. That's pretty good. Unfortunately, we'll be hitting fresh armor, but I'm going to go ahead with it anyway, as I don't think we'd be doing that great of damage if I just used the medium laser and small laser. We won't have our evasive, though, doing this. Here comes a small laser, which we unfortunately missed. Okay. So now we can move our Centurion. And I think breaking line of sight is not going to be that big of a deal for us. So I'm going to get in behind here, and we're going to do as much damage as we can. That does leave our Vindicator a little bit vulnerable to counterattack here. We're going to attack with everything we have, except for the LRM-10. If we hit with the AC-10, which of course we missed, it would be devastating. But we did manage to clip one of the wings of that Jenner. Now the Jenner is going to be able to respond to us here and probably get in behind yet again. No, okay, it decided to just go defensive here. Alright, so at this point, there's no reason to sensor lock that mech. As a matter of fact, we might as well just reserve again. This commando is a possible threat if it can get in here and attack the Vindicator, which I'm going to assume it can. We are going to reduce that damage a little bit because of the cover. And we are unsteady at this point, which means that I won't be able to get the advantage of the evasive, regardless of what I do at this point. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to punch the Jenner, as I think that that is the best way to deal with it. We're going to move around to this side of it, though, and engage. This will remove its cover bonus, giving us the best chance. Now, we don't have necessarily the best chance of hitting it here, but that's still good damage that we just did. Let's hope the small laser lands. It did. Unfortunately, it hit in the head. That's the one place we really didn't want to hit it. Fortunately, the AC-20 just missed there. We are going to take a couple medium laser damages there. Okay, so now, with our Centurion, we could go in and punch as well. Probably finish off the Jenner, which I don't think is a bad move necessarily. It has been gotten its wings clipped a little bit as far as damage, but let's just delete it for now. Oh, you know what? That's only a 71% chance. We could probably do a little bit better if I do something a little bit different. Maybe we use just our guns here. Although I don't know what our chance to hit with those are going to be. But let's move into cover here. And put ourselves in a position for future turns. Okay, so we've got, not the best chance to hit, but if we land with one of these weapons, we will take this Jenner out. Now, granted, if we'd hit with the AC-10 in the last turn, we would have taken this guy out anyway. Let's fire this off. There we go. That's what we need. Okay, so our rear armor is not feeling too good on our Centurion, but otherwise we're not doing too bad. Okay, so Witness now has the opportunity to use that sensor lock. Preferably the commando, I think. And we're going to go after the commando with sumo.
What's
Now,
up, Commander?
we can get a line of sight. That looks good. So we'll put that in there.
On the move.
And hopefully do some good damage to this commando. I don't think we're going to take it out. But we might as well fire off all our weapons here.
Make some tracks.
Okay, good damage there. Alright. Now the commando is going to come in and retaliate. Fire on our Centurion. Which at this point has been untouched.
I'm catching some serious shit here, Commander.
Okay. So,
What can I do for
we're
you?
going to use Witness here. As a matter of fact, we're not. Because we could use the Locust offensively. So, I think instead we're going to just reserve.
I'll wait here.
That just does mean that we're going to eat some damage here. That we didn't want to eat. So our Vindicator's a little hurt at this point. What we might want to do is back off with it and go braced.
Yes, Commander.
Alternatively, we can punch. But let's go ahead and move our other mechs first so we have an idea of what's going on here. So first things first, let's attack the commando with our Centurion. We're going to fire off these weapons. This will give us our... Oh, wow, good hit there. This will give us our guarded, which is what we're looking for. We don't want that Centurion to be able to get in behind us, though. Let's now take...
Something I can do.
Alright, we do not have a direct line of sight, so we're going to try and do something about that. Let's move. Oop. There we go, move. There we go, right here, and we've got our direct line of sight. And it looks like a good range for us, too. And our chances to hit aren't particularly great, because we don't have a solid line of sight. But there we go, just blew off one arm, which is going to remove the medium laser from the firepower. Alright, at this point,
Awaiting
we could stick it out with Paradise. We could inspire him, and we could punch this commando, and possibly have a chance of taking him out. And you know what? I'm going to do that. So we're going to inspire.
I'm going to enjoy pummeling you.
We're going to... Now, I don't want to move. It's actually making me move. I prefer to be in cover if we're going to do that, although we're going to be a... Actually, that's okay, because we're facing the one place that is hurt on us away from the Hunchback. So, not ideal, but we'll go for it.
Location.
We've got a 100% chance of hitting with our melee attack. Which missed anyway. Why would it say 100% if you still miss? Alright, well, we blew off the left torso, I guess. I'm not sure why we missed that punch.
I hear ya.
Okay, at this point, we can have our Locust come in and do a bit of damage on the commando. This is a little risky, as the commando will be able to counterattack this move if we don't take it out, and frankly, our chance of taking it out is not particularly great after we miss with our punch there. But we managed to blow off its other arm and its right torso, so it doesn't really have much in the way of firepower. It has an SRM-6, but the question is, does it have the ammo for that SRM-6? It may not. The commando is going to back off here. I think we are going to move with the Locust to make sure that it cannot be targeted by the Hunchback. That would be devastating to us if we did get hit with an AC-20. But I am going to sensor lock up that Hunchback. Now, the Hunchback has the Bulwark ability, so if it stays still, fortunately the AC-20 missed there. Okay. At this point, let's start with Sumo. And if we only use the LRM-5, which has the best chance of hitting, we will remove the defenses of the Hunchback. Now, honestly, do we want to be firing an LRM-5, though? That's not a lot of damage. I think I would prefer to use the PPC in this case instead. So, less chance to hit, sure, but it could be better maybe if we close the range a little bit. So, why don't we do that? The cover's not going to matter as much for us. Unless, of course, the Hunchback moves up and then it could plaster us. So, yeah, we're probably better off staying where we are, honestly. Alright, we're going to try with this. If we hit, we hit. If we miss, we miss. And we missed. That sucks, but it was worth trying. Okay, now Paradise is just going to back off. Preferably breaking line of sight if we can, although I don't know if that's going to count. I don't think we can unless I sprint, but we can't sprint because we're unsteady. So let's just back up a bit. Get ourselves centered here. And then we're going to brace, which is going to give us back our evasive. So now we're really well defended. Okay. Ozone has a perfect target here on the Hunchback. Be using both the AC-10 and the LRM-20. I'm sorry, LRM-10. But, unfortunately, Guard we can't break. Unless we had Inspire, which we already used recently. But we're still getting hits here. Damage is damage. At this point, they didn't have line of sight on us, so the Commando here has to more or less suicide itself for the sake of line of sight. We're probably going to try and finish that guy off. I don't think it's a good idea to try and do it with our light mech here, even if we maybe would pull it off. Instead, I'm going to use my light mech to sensor lock the Hunchback. That doesn't mean the Hunchback will be able to fire upon me, as it will be going next. Oh, but it's going to move anyway. This actually leaves the Hunchback very vulnerable. And fortunately, AC-20 missed, so we've been getting very lucky as far as that is concerned. So we want to make that Hunchback pay at this point. It has no defenses whatsoever. So the more damage we can do, the better.
Yes, Commander.
We're just going to ignore the Commando for now, as it's not as big of a threat. So PPC, medium laser, LRM-5, we're going to fire off all of these. Oh, no, we want to keep moving. That was almost a mistake. So let's just move very slightly. About there. Keep that evasive up. And now we can fire everything up.
He's going down.
Okay. Let's do the same
What's up, Commander?
with Sumo here. Attacking. We should have a better chance to hit with the PPC and the LRM-5. Let's go ahead and fire those off. We don't need to only fire one at this point because the enemy doesn't have any defensive statuses. Okay. Ooh, okay. We do not have a direct line of sight on the Hunchback. We might want to fire off our LRM-10 anyway, as it is pretty good damage. It has a 70% chance of hitting, which is not bad. And I'll take it. Allows us to cool off a little bit. Okay, here comes their light mech. Now, I do have to concern myself with this Commando a little bit.
I hear ya.
Because it's possible it will go after my light mech, and that would be bad. I can't get in behind the Commando. For now, though, I'm just going to reserve. We have more options if we allow the enemy with their medium mech to go first. More than likely, the Vindicator is going to be a target here. But no, it's the Centurion instead. Okay. But the guarded status did reduce the damage we took there. Okay. Well, again, the Hunchback is in a place that we can do good damage to it. I'm not going to use Witness to sensor lock, though. Instead, we're just going to attack directly. Heat is becoming a problem with this Vindicator, but we definitely want this damage now, so let's fire. Okay, we continue to do damage to this torso section, and we might be able to take out the ammo for that AC-20 if we get it off. I think Ozone we should have go now. We're going to reserve the LRM-10 and fire off the medium lasers in the AC-10. We really want the AC-10 to hit. Okay, it did. Unfortunately, we did hit places that had pretty fresh armor. Okay. Going to attack. The LRM-5 is a little bit less useful at this range. PPC and a medium laser. We're going to keep focusing on the Hunchback. Alright. Now with Witness, I'm going to try and finish off this commando. If we do pull it off, let's first take a look at the commando, because I can attack it in the rear, but it has fresh armor in the rear, which honestly is probably not the best move. So let's go after it from a side. Now we want to get nice and close so that we can use our machine guns. Oh, that's right. It's got guarded. That's the one reason we'd want to get in behind. So let's move in here. Get in behind it. And then just open up with our guns. Now, again, fresh armor here, so we might not be able to finish him off, but we'll get rid of the damage reduction. And unfortunately, we did miss with the medium laser. Now, I expect the commando to punch us here, which is the risk that we took in doing that attack. But we should be able to back off at this point. And as long as we break our line of sight with the Hunchback, won't be that big of a deal. Now, ideally, we want to get the machine guns in there. So I'm going to be a little bit risky here because the Hunchback could get up, walk over here, and just lay into our locust. So this is a risky play, but now we have a really good chance at doing good damage to this guy. And unfortunately, we didn't manage to take him out. Okay. Hunchback's gonna get up. Let's see if he does indeed do that, go after our locust. Nope. Just gonna go after a Centurion again. Okay. We are starting to hurt a little bit with our Centurion. Okay, the problem is now that the Hunchback is entrenched. Now we can do something about that with Sumo. We can turn off all of our weapons except the PPC and hit him and just remove that defense. So that's good. We can also have one of our mechs go in and punch him. That will remove the guard if I remember correctly. Although, unfortunately, my mechs are not quite fast enough to close that distance. I think we're just going to stop this commando and try and finish it off. Although it isn't a threat, it could try and damage my locust again. So let's just try and take it out. Ah, now we hit you. It's a little bit of wasted damage that we could have been using on the Hunchback. But we do have an Inspire available for our Centurion, which we are going to use to do maximum damage here. If it will allow me to press the button. There we go. And now let's open up on him. I'm going to fire off the LRM-10 as well, even though it's not a great chance to hit, because while we have his guard down, we might as well do as much damage as we possibly can. Okay, there goes his arm. There goes his torso section. So we've removed one medium laser. We removed, I think, all of his ammo for his AC-20, so he shouldn't be able to fire that, as far as I understand. Let's go ahead and... I still think that it's possible our locust might be in trouble, but I'm going to reserve anyway. Okay, I think that more or less confirms that I was right. And this now means that we will win the tank race. So let's go back to Sumo. And as long as we just keep firing our PPC, and that's all we fire, we should chip this guy away. Until he's down to nothing.
Yes, Commander.
Now with Paradise, we're going to want to keep moving.
As you wish.
And firing away here. Now he has defense against us, but at this point, it's damaged enough that I don't think it's going to really matter. Turn off the LRM-10 because it overheats us too much. Fire everything else. Okay, that might do it. Not close.
Keep an eye on my heat, Commander.
We're not done, though. We have a Locust, and the Locust can hit and run here, so we'll get in nice and close so we can use our machine guns, and then we'll run away next turn. Still gonna have guard. Unfortunately, I don't think I could get behind him. I didn't really check to see, though. But we'd be hitting fresh armor. I want to hit weakened armor. Ah, there we go. We got him. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the action report. So this took a little bit longer this time than the first match I had with this group, but still, it's a pretty strong group. It can be a little challenging to play with because of the Vindicator's weakness, and honestly, if I was fighting against this squad, I just rush the squad, get in close with my frontline units, and try and remove their ability to use the LRM-5 and the PPCs against me. What you're trying to do, though, is make them pay with the Centurion if they do that. But if you were facing an enemy that was very up-close and personal brawler style, this Lance may struggle a little bit. Now, on the same token, though, if you see that coming, then I would just do maybe a retreating attack with my mechs and just pepper them with what long-range weapons we have, because the Centurion, the Vindicators, can do that. They can engage at range. So problem is, though, that they're slow. So if the enemy has faster mechs, they can close that distance, and eventually they'll get in. So the objective with this Lance loadout is to make them pay before they close that distance, and preferably whittle them down to the point that they are less of a threat once they do close that distance. But just with any loadout, there's going to be strengths and weaknesses, and I think this was a pretty good build. I wasn't actually so sure how well it would do, but both in my practice and in this particular match, it seemingly is pretty successful. In any case, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. This is Mouse Gunner, signing out.